Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Falkirk Council Scrutiny Committee. Thursday, 7th of September 2023. So if you could ensure that your phones are on silent, so we don't get any interruptions through the meeting. And those joining us online, if you could ensure you put your hand up, and if I happen to miss you, if you just shout out. The meeting's being live streamed at the moment. So the first item on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
No, convener, we don't have any apologies.
Yes, thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? No. Thank you. Agenda item 3, minute of the meeting of the Scrutiny Committee held on the 1st of June 2023, pages 3 to 17 in your agenda. Can we agree the minute?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Any matters arising from that minute? No. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4, rolling action log, pages 18 to 22 on your agenda, and we'll go over to Mr. Perry for that.
Thank you, convener. This is simply the now familiar rolling action log for items that have been requested by the committee. You'll see that the bulk of these are actually the education reports, and they're on the agenda for today's meeting, so they would fall off the rolling action log. Other than that, we have outstanding actions on deposit return system update, but we're not expecting reports. I think Mr. Benny explained at the last meeting that that's some way down the line, and that's accepted. And a report to come back on pupil equity funds update. I will add, however, there was 3 reports requested at the last scrutiny committee. The first of which is the contact centre, which we have on today's agenda. I'll add them to their own action log. They should have been included and weren't. And that was my mistake, unfortunately. Unfortunately for me. So we'll add that on, so they'll be captured, so we can track them at the next meeting. But I think unless there's any comments, the action log's pretty self-explanatory.
No comments. Okay. Agenda item 6, progress report. No, agenda item 5, progress report, Rannoch Early Learning and Childcare Centre, pages 23 to 42, and I believe it's Ms. J that's going to speak to the report. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish you a happy birthday. Isn't it?
Thank you, convener. I'd like, before I start, to formally introduce my colleague Lisa McCabe. Lisa is the Service Manager in Education with responsibility for early learning and childcare. So I'm really pleased to have her with us today, and she'll be your expert question answerer when it comes to questions. So for Rannoch and Early Learning Childcare Centre, you know the purpose of this report is to update you on the progress and improvement action taken at Rannoch Early Learning and Childcare Centre following the unannounced care inspectorate inspection in September 21, and to report the outcome of a follow-up through inspection in July 2022. And could you also note that follow-up inspections are also unannounced. You're asked to note the revised gradings for the nursery of the July 2022 inspection, and note the impact of the improvement action taken to address the recommendations of the original inspection report of 2021. Sections 4 to 4.3 provide you with some background information about Care Inspectorate, the original inspection report gradings for the 2 quality indicators evaluated, and the national benchmarking criteria that are used to determine how well settings are meeting the national care standards. Explanations are provided to note the difference between requirements, which are in relation to statutory duty, and recommendations which reflect areas for improvement or development in relation to quality. Rannoch was evaluated as good for the quality of care and support, and adequate for the quality of the environment. There were no requirements in relation to the original inspection of 2021. Section 4.4 provides you with detail of the 2 recommendations made. Priority 1, to improve the play environment and to balance between organised and freely chosen play experiences. And priority 2, to improve infection control processes and practices and to ensure good organisation, storage of resources and hygiene procedures. 4.5 refers to members to Appendix 1, which is the plan of improvement actions put in place to address these two recommendations. In sections 4.6 to 4.9, we summarise the gradings from the follow-up inspection of July 2022 and refers members to the full report found in Appendix 2 and notes that progress has been made in both recommended areas. Members are asked to note the slight changes in terminology to quality indicators used in 2022. So in 2021, it was quality of care and support, which changed in 2022 to how good is our play and learning. In 2021, it was quality of environment, which changed in 2022 to how good is our setting. And the table in 4.8 is helpful in showing you the changes in terminology and the improved gradings in both recommended areas for improvement. 4.10 provides with a summary of progress made for each of the priorities for improvement, noting that for priority 1, the play and learning environment offered more play spaces and choice, and that improved planning processes were a better balance between organised and child-led play. For priority 2, that the cleaning and hygiene schedules had improved and the organisation and storage of resources were appropriate. The 2022 report notes that both recommended areas for improvement had been assessed as being met. Sections 5 to 5.3 ask members to consider the effective implementation of the improvement actions outlined in Appendix 1, to note the significant impact of leadership and teamwork in taking forward the improvements, and that the 2022 inspection evaluations grade Rannoch now as operating at an overall standard of very good. And in conclusion, the care inspector identified major strengths in Rannoch leading to the overall evaluation of very good and made no further recommendations. I would like to commend Gemma Patterson, who's head of centre, for her leadership and support of her team, for their care, collegiality and teamwork in taking the service forward and the expectations within the recommended areas for improvement. I'd also like to thank Service Manager Lisa McCabe, who's here today, and the Central ELC team who've worked in partnership with the Rannoch staff team throughout this process. Your questions and comments are now welcome.
Yes, thanks very much for that. We'll now open it up to members for any questions, comments. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Provost. Just like to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I'll say that I'm delighted that there's one of the McCabes is an expert here, because I'm certainly not. I just like to welcome the report and say that I'm very pleased to see the progress that's been made. I don't have anything other than that, Provost. It's just an observation. Thank you, ladies.
It is indeed a good news story. You know, on page 3 of 10 of the report, that how good is our care and play learning? Very good. How good is our setting? Good. How good is our leadership? Very good. How good is our staff team? Very good. So from where we were to where we are now, there's been a significant input from good leadership as well, driving it forward and bringing about this positive change. So well done to everybody involved. And if there's no other questions, can I ask if we can agree the report? Agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, Slamanan Primary School and early. Progress report, Bonus Public Primary School, Early Learning and Childcare class, pages 43 to 63 on your agendas, and over to Ms. G again.
Okay, thank you again, Convener. So once again, the purpose of this report is to tell you about the improvement action taken at Bonus Public Primary School, Early Learning and Childcare class, following their unannounced care inspection in December 2021, and to report to you the outcome of the follow-through inspection in November 2022, which again was an unannounced inspection. You're asked again to note the revised gradings for the nursery of November 2022 and the impact of the improvement actions taken to address the recommendations of that original inspection report of 2021. Likewise, sections 4 to 4.3 in this report provide background information as previously. And again, there are explanations provided to you for the difference between requirements and recommendations. There were no requirements for Bonus Public in 2020-21. In section 4.4, there's detail of the two recommendations that were made for priority 1. These were for children with additional support needs to have a positive experience and that staff were well trained and effectively deployed to implement strategies identified to meet individual needs. And in priority 2, to promote well-being and ensure consistency of language and nurturing practices. 4.5 refers members to Appendix 1 of the plan and the actions put in place to address these 2 recommendations. 4.6 to 4.9 summarises the gradings from the follow-up inspection of November 2022 and refers members to the full report found in Appendix 2, noting that the significant progress has been made in both recommended areas for improvement. Members are again asked to note the slight changes to terminology in the quality indicators. So for 2021, it was quality of care and support. In 2022, this changed to how good is our play and learning. In 2021, quality of management and leadership, and in 2022, how good is our leadership. The table in 4.8 is helpful in showing you the changes in terminology and the improved gradings in both recommended areas for improvement, noting the marked improvement particularly from adequate to very good for priority area 1. 4.10 provides a summary of progress made for each of these priorities for improvement, which were supported by the local authority officers and other professionals, noting that for priority 1, the impact of the local authority-led programme of training, which has supported the staff team to improve the quality of individual plans, consistent implementation of strategies, and effective deployment of staff to meet children's needs. Priority 2, the close and nurturing responsive relationships between staff and children, and the effective strategies in place to help children manage their emotions and be happy and settled in nursery. The 2022 report notes that both recommended areas for improvement were assessed as being met. Sections 5 to 5.3 ask members to consider the effective implementation of the improvement actions as outlined in Appendix 1, the significant impact of leadership and teamwork from the local authority and the nursery team in taking forward these improvements, and that in 2022, inspection evaluations graded bonus as operating at an overall standard of very good. In the concluding section, the Care Inspectorate again identified major strengths in bonus public leading to the overall evaluation of very good and made no further recommendations. I'd also like to thank Mrs McCabe again and her team who led the programme of training and support which alongside the leadership of the head teacher and the nursery team brought about significant improvements which exceeded the original recommendations for improvement. And once again, we're here to take questions and comments.
Hey, thank you very much. I'll open up for members' comments or questions. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I'm just wondering, I think it's absolutely fantastic report that the early learning at Bowness Public has advanced quite a lot over the last 18 months or so. I appreciate the grading of good for the setting. I think we appreciate the setting as is, and there's only so much you can do with the area at Bowness Public School. I just would like to ask, what was the level of input from senior management pre the first inspection in 2021? And how has that changed since, or has it changed or whatever?
Okay, I'm going to pass you to Lisa for that question.
Thank you very much for the question. I think what we would recognise is that since the first inspection, the quality and intensity of leadership support was increased. There has been some personnel changes within the establishment, and we know that it tends to be the case that with any personnel change at senior levels particularly, that brings about a freshness, it brings about new ideas, and I think we can certainly recognise that there was a contribution of that in the improvements that were delivered. But the head teacher who was there in the first inspection also was there in the follow-up inspection. She certainly took a more active role in leading the improvements herself. She worked very closely with the staff team. She compiled the action report that identified the key actions that were considered to be those that needed to deliver those improvements. And she herself was very active in monitoring that over the period of time. What we would say is that the improvements that were identified were delivered over a relatively short time, and I think what that does demonstrate is that there was already quite a level of capacity within the service, despite the grading of adequate being delivered in that first inspection. Thank you.
Councillor Binney.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for your report. I mean, this report is excellent and it's significant improvements. And big thanks to the school management and all the teamwork and Mrs. McCabe herself. Also, what I want to say, I'm really happy to see, which is really important, it's made a positive impact, and that can be seen in happy and content children of close relationships with adults. I just want to say, well done, a significant improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Binney. Any other questions? No. So yeah, again, a really good report. You can't get much better. Very good, good, very good, very good. So again, another good news story, and there's been a significant amount of change, and you can see it's a fairly robust action plan. It's been well written and well crafted to bring about the change. But of course, to bring about that change, you need leadership, and we can clearly see that's happened. So thanks very much. And can the committee agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Next agenda item 7, Slamanan Primary School and Early Learning and Childcare Progress Report, pages 64 to 93 on your agenda papers, and it's over to Ms J to speak to the report.
Thank you again, convener, and my apologies for not going through yourself when I passed the question to
No, it's okay.
So this is a slightly different progress report from the others that we've brought to you. So it's to confirm the conclusion of Education Scotland HMI engagement with Slamanan Primary School and ELC class. You're asked to note the validation of the local authorities report of November 2022, and to note that there are no further requirements for the Director of Children's Services and his staff to provide any further reports to His Majesty's inspectors. Sections 4 to 4.3 provide background to the original inspection in January 2018 and the areas for improvement that were identified at that time. Sections 4.4 to 4.7 provide a summary of HMI inspection and engagement with Slamanan between 2019 and 2021. It's worth noting that whilst inspection activity was suspended during the COVID pandemic, that supported by local authority officers, the head teacher and staff continued a programme of online engagements with inspectors to progress the recommendations from 2018. It's also important to note that Slamanan was one of the first schools to be visited in 2021 when HMI recommends their inspection activities, rightly prioritising schools in the continuing engagement category, albeit very quickly in the first term that children's staff had been back in nursery and school together after periods of lockdown. Members are referred to Appendix 1, which is the follow-up inspections reports in 2019, Appendix 2, which is the outcome letter of the further inspection of 2021, and the hyperlink that takes in 4.7 to the progress report to Scrutiny, which we brought to you in March of 2022. Sections 5 to 5.4 outline the continued engagement process following the return visit of November 2021, after which the local authority was to provide a progress report to Education Scotland HMI. This report is provided to you in Appendix 3 and notes positive progress against all 4 recommended areas for improvement, which in summary were strategic leadership and self-evaluation, learning and teaching, supporting additional learning needs and raising attainment. The local authorities report of November 2022 was discussed and validated on the 28th of March 2023. This was an online meeting with the head teacher, local authority officers and HMI inspectors. There's no report from this meeting. Appendix 4 provides a copy of the letter to parents and carers, which was published on the Education Scotland website on the 2nd of May. Section 6 concludes that the process of continued engagement and the validation discussion of March 23 has provided evidence of progress and improvement over this period of time. HMI are confident that no further inspections or progress reports in the local authority are required. As noted, central officers have worked closely with the head teacher and her team and will continue to do so as per our programme of continuous support, challenge and quality assurance. I would like to commend the head teacher and her staff for their professional engagement and resilience in this protracted period of scrutiny and for their commitment to working with us to bring about improvements in all areas recommended. I would also like to note my appreciation to central officers from the ELC and schools improvement teams who provided excellent support, encouragement and guidance throughout this period and should be credited with contributing to the progress that's been made. And once again, open for questions and comments.
Thank you very much. Just to open up for questions from anyone. Councillor Robertson. You're on mute, Councillor Robertson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I would just like to say thank you to the staff and all the hard work they've put into these reports on the 3 schools. Very positive. The progress reports on the 3 schools are positive. The council plan measures are on track and in fact are exceeding targets. That's very good news. All the reports are positive. The evaluations are positive, and any improvements that have been noted have been met. So I'm quite happy with the report, and I'd like it so noted.
Thanks very much, Councillor Robertson. Any other questions, or I'll maybe go to Councillor Sinclair, who's a portfolio holder, if he's got any comments.
Thanks, Provost. Apologies for not being in person today. I've had something come up that I've had to attend to locally. What I would say, in summary, across the 3 reports that we've had this morning on the education functions, is just how much progress is being made within, especially our early learning and childcare centres, but right across the school estate. And that's predominantly down to the significant amount of work being put in by the teams in place there, including Mrs J, Mrs McCabe and the local teams in the schools. So just to provide my thanks to the teams for all the work that's going on in there, and to thank them very much, and let's hope to see continued progress in this area.
Thanks very much, Councillor McCabe. Councillor McCabe. Councillor Sinclair, over to Councillor McCabe.
Thanks, Convener. I would just like to echo Councillor Sinclair's comments. Councillor Robertson, in fact, all councillors, the 3 reports that we've had in front of us this morning are very, very positive. As Councillor Sinclair mentioned, his progress and improvement has been good. It's been better than good. It's if you look at 8, it says considerable progress and improvement has been made. So I would just like to echo the thanks of everyone here to the staff and whatever. And just purely out of nosiness, I'd maybe ask Lisa, what's it like when you undergo inspections from HMI or care inspector or whatever? Does it put pressure on staff, or how do you handle it? I'm just curious. That's
Ms McCabe.
Thank you very much for the question, and it's a very interesting question. Broadly speaking, we welcome external scrutiny. We find that to be one of a range of key levers that helps us deliver improvements. It supports our own internal self-evaluation processes. We believe that part of the work that we've been doing as a service is to build that culture within our schools and our nurseries, where staff teams understand that contribution of external scrutiny and are well supported to engage with that positively. There is a difference between the 2 inspectorates, and in the case of early childcare establishments, they are subject to both of the inspectorates, and those can happen therefore more regularly in early learning and childcare establishments. So part of that regularity, while in some cases it might seem onerous for staff, actually what it does do is build up a real confidence among staff teams to be able to cope with that, because it's something that they undergo on a fairly regular basis. We have been fortunate that as central officers we do provide really effective support for our establishments when we do undergo these processes. So our own internal structures that happen before, during and after these processes have deemed to be supportive of people to do their very best.
Thanks, Councillor McCabe. Any other questions? No. So yet again, another positive good news story, and I'm glad to see that we took the time to write to the parents, to inform the parents of the outcomes, and everything was to give them some reassurance. So thanks again. And it's clear across the 3 reports, as Councillor Sinclair said, there's been significant improvement, and that takes a lot of time and effort and leadership. So I think all the committee would like to say thanks to everybody involved. Thank you. And can the committee note the reports, please?
Noted.
Okay, happy to note them. Thank you.
Very happy to note.
Yes, thank you. Could Mr. Gillespie and Ms. Nielsen come up, please, for the contact centre report?
Thank you.
Is that your way to celebrate? Thanks very much. The next item of business is agenda item 8, contact centre performance, pages 94 to 99 your agendas. But I'd just like to say we called for a report because we value the contact centre and want to understand some of the issues our constituents have raised. We appreciate the work of the contact centre staff, but do feel there may be ways to improve the already good service they provide. The committee is minded to call for the subject to be included in the scrutiny plan, but before we come to that decision, I would ask Mr. Gillespie to give an overview of his report, after which the committee will have questions. Thank you.
Provost, on this occasion, could I ask Anne-Marie to present the report?
Certainly. Carry on.
Thank you, Provost. I'd firstly like to thank the contact centre staff and managers who, despite the challenging call volumes that we have, continue to provide excellent customer service when they're speaking with callers. I'm aware that members will have read the report, so I'll just highlight a short summary and some key points. The purpose of the report is outlined at section 1, and section 3 provides some background to the contact centre. The table at 4.1 shows details of all calls to Falkirk Council on the main telephone number 50 60 70. And para 4.2 shows that having introduced the digital telephony system, we've achieved our aim of reducing the number of calls to the contact centre year on year. The table at 4.3 shows details of the calls that are actually transferred to the contact centre, and para 4.4 highlights that call handling performance is directly affected by the total number of calls and when they're made, the staff resource available to take the calls, and the length of each call. It also highlights that calls are not evenly spread throughout the day or throughout the week. Paras 4.5 to 4.7 detail some of the staffing and recruitment issues we've had over the past year in particular, which has definitely affected call handling performance. Call handling has also been impacted by higher than average sickness absence over the past year. The report shows that we've recently filled all vacancies, new recruits are completing their training, and that we're also adding an additional 1.8 FTE resource to the contact centre, and recruitment for these posts is currently underway. Sickness absence levels have now also returned to normal levels. Paras 4.10 and 4.11 detail improvements that have been implemented over recent years and improvements that are in progress. We're confident that the increase in trained staff and the reduction in sickness absence will significantly improve call handling performance and suggest that committee request a further report in 6 months' time. The recommendations to note the contact centre performance information and the continuous improvement actions are at section 2. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, so thanks very much for that. A question I would like to ask, which service has the highest level of calls?
The line that receives most calls is the combi line, which is the line that people call when they don't know who to call, or they've chosen that they don't like waiting in the queue that they're currently in. And following that, it's repairs line, housing repairs.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll just open it up. Councillor Binney.
Thank you, convener. I want to echo that too. I mean, contact centre, first point of contact to Falkirk Council, and that is very significant. That signposts people to the relevant services and things like that, so that can improve communication for our residents and also for our services. But I do appreciate all the hard work they do. And in the past, as you said, you had problems with recruitment and with sickness, so that would have made it difficult for the staff that was there at that particular time. Though I do have some couple of questions actually, and I'm pleased that perhaps we maybe need to look at this more in depth with a scrutiny panel and look at all the issues, so we can make improvements to the process. It's never about the people, it's about the process. My first question is, when there's changes to service deliveries, there's been some significant ones. There's been the rollout of the brown bins payment and things like that, and people were quite anxious to find out. You know, that was quite significant, so a lot of people would want to find out more information. How quickly does the contact centre hear of these changes, and what briefing takes place in the contact centre, you know, just to update the staff members? And does an officer, you know, engage with other services on a regular basis and find out the changes to the service, because that might impact the number of telephone calls that comes to the contact centre? So that's my first question. Thank you.
Okay, Ms Nielsen.
Thank you. Councillor, yes, we do liaise regularly with services. You'll be aware of our current budgeting cycle and the fact that budget decisions are often made late February, early March. So although we are aware of proposals to make some of the changes, for example, brown bins or changes to recycling centre appointments, they're not confirmed until just before they're implemented. We've already been in discussions with the services leading up to that to try to resolve any issues that may come out of it. We do highlight to them that any change in service delivery at all will increase the call volumes to the contact centre, regardless of whether they should. They will increase the call volumes. And we do what we can to influence the way that the service is going to be implemented to ensure that we maximise the communication and minimise the calls that will come in with people not understanding what's to be done or what the situation is.
Councillor Binney, happy with that response?
Yes, I'm happy with that response. Can I come on to my second question, if that's okay?
Yes, carry on.
The digital telephone service can divert calls to specific services through self-selection. In the year 22-23, 56% of these calls were diverted to another service. That continued represents an increase of diverted calls. This appears a positive, but can you tell me how this looks when broken down by service? What is the process once a call is diverted to a service, and can that impact the contact centre again? If a resident doesn't get an answer, do they call back to the call centre, and that process is repeated on and on?
Thank you, Councillor. That's exactly correct. When the call is transferred to the service,
Feedback, can somebody mute this?
when the call is transferred to the other service, it doesn't touch the contact centre at all. It's only using the telephony system. But you're quite right that there are occasions where, for whatever reason, if the service themselves does not have enough resource answering calls, they will often hang up and phone back and select the combi line option for any other inquiry, because they're not understanding why their call's not been answered. So they're thinking that we'll be able to direct the call through.
Thank you for that answer. Definitely needs a deeper dive into how the whole process works, I believe. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Councillor Forrest.
Could I ask, what do you have a percentage of calls which are actually terminated, people giving up before they actually reach the correct stage? Because anecdotally, we have so many, and that is always good to be biased, because people don't phone up and say, what a fantastic service, I got through in 2 minutes, you know. So if you could give us a figure for that.
Thank you, Councillor. The table at 4.3 does show, there's a line that shows deflected calls. So it shows the number of deflected calls and the percentage of deflected calls. So those are the calls where people have called the contact centre line, they've held on for a period of time and then they've hung up. Now, most lines have some sort of recorded message on them that indicate how they can self-serve and go online to do things digitally. So if we're thinking positively, we could say that some of these deflected calls are people choosing to self-serve as a result of the recorded message, but there's no doubt there will be some of them who are hanging up and then calling again, so you're getting multiple repeat calls from the same caller for the one issue.
That's what I thought. Thanks very much.
Any other questions? Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just ask, on a daily basis with the staff that you have available, how are they deployed? Are they all responsible for answering calls, or is there some specifically answering emails, or how? Just give me a wee bit more idea how that would work on a daily basis.
The staff work flexibly, so with the digital technology, it means that they can be working from home, taking the calls or taking the emails, and they are in the office on a rota basis for team building purposes. All staff are multi-trained, so they're multifunctional. In the past, years ago, we had certain staff trained to answer certain lines. We find that it makes better sense and we can respond better to call volumes if all staff are multi-trained and able to take all calls. And no staff are taken off of the call handling to deal with emails. Emails are presented through the telephony system.
Yeah, thank you. And just a second question. I notice that the amount of daily staff you have has reduced over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm sure you'll agree that that is subsequently the reason why it's taken so long to answer calls. I'm not so sure about the figure for 7 minutes for average time to answer a call. You know, would that be the direct reason for the time going up, simply because the staff has reduced?
As it states in the paper, the availability of call handlers has a significant impact on the number of calls that are answered. So some of it may be the reduction of staffing for whatever reason, whether it's because the vacancies aren't filled, whether it's because staff are off on annual leave, whether they're on sickness leave. It means there are fewer staff available to take calls.
Mm-hmm. And just on the sickness, I appreciate it's came back to a normal level. Without divulging any great information or whatever, do you have any reasoning, as in headings, for stress or physical illness for people being off?
The main it's multiple reasons. There's no specific reasons. There's not been specific mental well-being issues. It's been, you know, virus, COVID, flu, etc. has been the main reasons.
Thank you. And I must say, anytime I've spoken to staff for the contact centre, they've been more than helpful and very polite. So congratulations on that.
Any other questions? Councillor McCabe.
Thanks, Convener. A couple of wee questions here. I asked this one first of all, basically because I attended a presentation in Denny Library a couple of days ago about dementia-friendly community. There's a pilot programme being rolled out in Denny just to make people more aware of dementia. And during the presentation discussions, it came up, you know, where someone may have to call into not only Falkirk's call centre, but any call centre. So I was just wondering, do we have, as part of the training, if our call handlers do have specifically targeted guidelines or instruction about how to handle potential dementia callers? It could be dementia carers who call in, it could also be the service user themselves. I'm just wondering.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not aware of them having any specific training for that specific illness, but we certainly provide enhanced customer care training that takes into account the wider issues associated with the customer care. So during the COVID period, we were aware that customers were needing to be on the phone for a longer period of time because of the mental well-being issues of being isolated, etc. We were equally aware that our own staff were experiencing some of the same issues. So we have in the past provided mental well-being type training, but nothing in specific to dementia.
Yeah, thanks, Anne-Marie. I picked that up. It came through very strongly in the report, you know, the additional time that's been spent by call handlers dealing with them, you know, concerned members of the public, and, you know, I'm very appreciative of that. But I think, you know, leading on to looking at the scrutiny panel, you know, whether we would delve into this a wee bit deeper and maybe suggesting that it's an addition to the training that we do consider, you know, dementia sufferers, that kind of thing. I think it's already came up to a certain extent. The call centre is a fantastic asset, and our call handlers do a wonderful job. But there is this, you know, the public perception, and undoubtedly they're right in it, you know, that they do have to hang on too long and whatever, like, you know. But I think we are all looking to try and improve it where we can. But as I say, it's already come up here where the information that can be gleaned from the call centre and how it impacts all of the other services, I think we need to learn more from it so that we can roll it up. This is almost taking what is perceived as a call centre problem, in actual fact identifying it's not really a problem, but we can open it up and go to all of our other services and try and give them a bit of guideline. I noticed that you'd mentioned that when someone maybe self-refers to a service and the service may be suffering a wee bit and they can't get back to them straight away, it kicks back and comes back into the call centre again. So learning things like that, I think, it's very helpful to the council, and we're able to roll that across all council services. So again, I think this is it's quite you know, at face value, we could all turn and go, God, I was on that phone for ages and whatever, like, you know. But in actual fact, it's quite a positive thing, because the information that we can get from it, we can go and develop better systems and whatever, just to advance all council services, if you like. So I suppose it's not really a question. That was just an observation, if you like. I beg your pardon, sorry, Provost. There was just one question that is quite specific to the report, and it's to do with, it was on page 98. We reduced the call handling resource by 1.8 FTE full-time employee equivalent. That seems quite an arbitrary number. I realise it could have been done for budgeting purposes, you know, budget savings and whatever. So we made that decision. I'm not saying that that was the cause of problems that we're now having, but it certainly didn't help. We've now identified that, so we're returning the 1.8 again back in, as well as looking for recruitment and trying to get other call handlers in. But it just seemed an arbitrary number. Any info on the back of that?
Thank you. It was actually 1.5 FTE that was taken out of the contact centre, and it was at a time when we had to achieve savings across the whole of customer and business support, and the contact centre is only one small part of that. So it was part of a bigger package of, I think, £450,000 worth of savings. It's 1.8 FTE that we're putting back in, so it's a 0.3 above what was taken out. When it was taken out, we did recognise that yes, there's likely to be an impact on call handling, but at that time we had the agenda of, and we still have the agenda of, driving more services online and making more services available digitally. Now that has not developed the way we expected. Although we've got more services available digitally, people are not necessarily always using them or always aware of them. So there's a bit of work to be done by the council as a whole to make sure that the digital agenda is pushed forward and that the contact centre is there for the people who really need to call us and can't do things by themselves.
Councillor Robertson, did you have your hand up earlier on? I put it back down.
Provost, the question was asked. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Just on building maintenance, do we have a figure on how many calls come from building maintenance for repairs? Or follow up on, you know, nobody turned up today, or somebody did turn, or I've got an issue, or whatever the question might be. So do we have a...
Provost, if you don't mind, it's very difficult to hone it down to the actual service, because as Anne-Marie says, sometimes they'll go through or it'll come back, depending if they've actually followed the process in the first place. What we do know is that building maintenance do carry out average of 30 to 40,000 maintenance repairs a year. There has been a backlog as reported previous years where we did see increased volumes of people trying to chase up follow-up work and repairs. I'm now aware through colleagues through Place Services that backlog is basically away, and we're just want that. So that should also help improve the customer times going forward.
Okay, thanks very much for that. No other questions? Well, at the outset, I said that the committee was minded to move to the scrutiny panel, and we've asked some questions. So is the committee still minded to move to the scrutiny panel?
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll ask Mr. Perry just to sort of summarise that, if you like.
Provost, if I could just ask one wee question. This is obviously the first scrutiny panel we'll be considering. Are we looking at the wider picture, Mr. Perry, about, you know, a scrutiny plan for full council?
I was going to say you read my mind, but almost, yeah. So the committee has indicated it's minded to go to a scrutiny panel. There's a step in the process first that the committee would report to council and say to the council that you recommend this forms part of the council plan. The plan can be one thing or it can be more things. So at this stage, it would probably just be the one thing. Council needs to consider that and agree with you. And if it does agree with you, then it will come back to the committee to set up a scrutiny panel. So you're probably talking about go to council maybe in December, panel starting, if council so agrees, panel starting January time. And in the meantime, as you recall, you have other reports coming forward. So you may, I think you're looking at building maintenance and thinking roads perhaps. You may decide that you want to put them to council to consider to add to the council plan. So the council plan isn't a fixed thing, it can grow. You can add more to it, but I think for just now, the first thing you'd be putting up is this one.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Perry. So that basically concludes this item, and thanks very much for attending. I really appreciate that. It's been quite insightful, and I'm sure we can move forward. And as it said, anecdotally, we've heard, everybody has heard comments about the centre, but I'd just like to reinforce that we're all aware of the pressures that the centre's under and the amount of calls that they're getting, and that they do a good job. And we're only here to try and improve the service. That's all we're here for, not to criticise anybody in any way, shape or manner. So thanks very much for that. Thank you.